great even without the projector because I've heard her before. It's Dr. Goley. She is a professor of zoology at HSU and the director of the Marine Mammal Education and Research Programs, and also the HSU Stranding Coordinator for the Marine Mammal Stranding Program. She has a BS from University of North Carolina at Wilmington and an MS from University of Victoria at British Columbia and a PhD from the University of California at Santa Cruz. She's been at HSU since 1996, and she does, I'm just looking at all these different things. Her focus is on and I'm sure she's going to tell you a lot about this, is on the design of marine mammal research associated with the acoustic. Oh, well, tell me that. She'll tell you all about it. But Dawn's a great speaker and a really great asset we have here in our community at HSU.
Hey everyone. Great to see you. Thanks so much for inviting me here. It's a real pleasure to be here. I am going to have to wing it a little bit here, so I'll just pretend that there will be pictures up there. No, but I wanted to sort of tell you how much I appreciate the community that you've built between yourselves, and then how much you enrich our own community. And one of my many intersections with you guys has been when my daughter came home from school with her new dictionary. And I know you guys might not think that's a big deal, but you're kind of teary about it actually, because it was, it was her first book that someone gave her other than her mom or dad. And in the front it said, "From you guys to her," and her name. And I promise you, that was our bedtime reading for months, just like finding words. So, I don't know, it might seem like a little thing to you, but it's a huge thing. So it's just one of the many things you do for our community. So I just wanted to tell you from heartfeltly how much we appreciate all that you do. So part of what I do at Humboldt State is successful because of the community we've built there. And marine mammals are long-lived, well-traveled creatures. It's impossible for a single person to sort of really learn very much that's important about a whale as they swim by or about a sea lion as they sit on a rock. It really takes a community. And as Carol mentioned, I did my PhD in Santa Cruz, where you couldn't really throw a rock and not hit another marine mammologist. So I was in a lab with four professors who were marine mammalogists and 45 grad students that were all working. So if they were studying elephant seals, we'd all sort of run out and wrestle elephant seals for them. Or when I needed help with dolphins, everyone would come with me. So it was really amazing to have this village of people that were sort of like-minded and communicated and really collaborated together. And I came here, and I can't throw a rock and hit every mammalogist here. So the nearest group of folks is down in San Francisco or up in Oregon. And so all of a sudden, I was the person that was responsible for telling people about the significance of marine mammals on the North Coast. And for a long time, we didn't know very much about them. When I came, there was this new wave of technology that helped us learn more about them. And but still, I couldn't do it on my own. And I know Howard and others have talked before and realized that you don't have a lot of time for this sort of thing. And so my first job when I got here was to sort of bring in a bunch of really excited students and to sort of borrow faculty wherever I could and community members to design this program called the Marine Mammal Education and Research Program. And since its inception in 1996, we've had over 400 students that have come through there and have gone off now to work for National Geographic or NOAA or NIMS and around the world. So I kind of feel like our little college in Humboldt has really started to spread the good science and news around the world. So Carol asked me to talk about whales, and that's one of the things we do. And so whales are exciting and curious, and I think the main reason I became a marine mammalogist was because there was so much unknown about it, and there's so much to discover. Every day you go out on the ocean or you walk a beach, you could discover something no one has seen before. And that's something that really drew me to that part of the science. And I think that's what draws a lot of people to that science or to that idea. So we have two components. This is one little spooky slide. No, it's good. So we have two basic components of the Marine Mammal Education and Research Program. And mostly juniors and seniors, that walk every stretch of beach in Humboldt County every month. We also have some that go up to Del Norte County, some down in Mendocino, and now we're starting a collaborative program up in Oregon to train coast volunteers, coastal stewards up there in the same kind of protocols that we use. And so we have two parts of our research. One is dead and one is alive. And so, you might be happy that this isn't on because I did. I thought maybe I shouldn't put these in. It's like 7 in the morning. It's like, no, they'll be fine. So you've gotten saved from the dead pictures. But there are some very interesting things that you learn from marine mammals. So how many people are beach walkers? Like, you just can't help yourselves, yes. Me too. And so part of what we do is walk the beaches in an effort-based way. And that means every month we record when we start, when we stop, which beach we walk. We've been doing this now in an effort-based way for 6 years. And the beauty of that is that we start to get a baseline of information. Right? We know on this beach in the last 6 years we've never had this many. So you start to be able to sort of compare what you see in one walk to what you've seen over many years. And that's super important. What we've been able to do is build a larger community with the other stranding networks along the coast and started to really be able to look at those stranding patterns of different flavors of marine mammals in relation to oceanographic conditions. And so we partnered with this group called the CENCUS, which is Central and Northern California Ocean Observation System. And you should look it up because it's the coolest website. And it's just this interactive website where you can look for sea surface temperature or seabird abundance or domoic acid poisoning and those sorts of things. So when you know the crab fishery closes, that's because there's a toxin in the water. And that affects marine mammals too. So now we can look at where our whales have stranded and our dolphins have stranded and compare that to what's happening in the ocean. And so you can get this idea of cause and effect. And that's a really powerful tool that we've just started. So this last year we've been working to coordinate with the California Academy of Science and the National Marine Sanctuaries in Central and Southern California to build this total network that encompasses all of California. So California now is the best wired marine mammal stranding program in the whole country. And it's starting to be a protocol or a sort of baseline for training other groups around the country. And the cool thing about that for me is that it couldn't have happened without the 47 undergraduate students that did that. And most of the days you don't find dead stuff, which for many people that might be a good thing, but for us they get so disappointed. So when we, but it really is only done because they're there. There's no way I could walk every beach every month. The other real contribution to that program is community outreach and community calls. And so some of the sort of bigger hitting critters that we found has been because somebody's been walking on the beach and given us a call. And I can't tell you the importance of that. We found one whale that's never been seen in person. So it's been seen. It was a unique kind of whale that has never been actually seen. So we were the first people to take pictures of it. They've had skeletons and skulls of it before that have washed up, but it was such a rare whale that we were one of the first ones to have it. So everybody's sketched it, and now it's part of the scientific literature. So, and that was from somebody walking the beach with their dog. We had another beach whale that just recently stranded, and a little sperm whale that just recently stranded, all within the last month, that we would not have known about unless people, stewards of the beach, would give us a call. So I want to encourage you to look at our phone number, and if you ever see something dead on a marine mammal dead on the beach, let us know. People call us about like beavers and cows too. That's fine, but we prefer to hear about dead marine mammals. And so you could say, so who cares about dead marine mammals? And I would say back to you, this baseline understanding lets us know about these patterns. And as you may or may not believe about global warming, there's a big change in the ocean occurring, and that has to do with toxins, both natural and artificial, as well as human interaction. So it gives us an index how to trace the health of the local ocean. So that's part of the importance. We also get to see evidence of human interactions. We've had a number of whales that are stranded because they've been wrapped in something, or even one that we found in Crescent City that had a harpoon in it, which was really interesting. It was from a native fishery up in the Aleutians, but it was a really interesting find. And we also get to sort of see if there are other sort of pathogens or problems in the ocean in a way that we couldn't, and that's where we're examining them. I think a huge other component is training of students. And so when we get to a whale and we do a full necropsy, which is just an autopsy on an animal, they get to sort of be holding the heart of a whale, and there's just nothing. I'm sorry. It's like so exciting. I know, I'm sitting with my friends at a table, we're talking about like parasites, and we're so excited. We look around, it's like,
we're morning people, we're good.
You're good. Okay. So that's like part
Most of us are morning people.
part of my joy and part of our community. And I'm so happy to welcome other members of our community into that. And so I promise you, if you see something dead on the beach, please let us know. Or if there's a living and injured animal, please let us know that. This is the other bit of outreach you could do right now if you're chatting with people. This is the time where harbor seals are going to start pupping. And so harbor seal pups, I don't know if you've ever seen one, but they're the most adorable critter. And since it's before school time, I can say that. I can be unobjective and tell you how dang adorable they are. But the moms have this weird thing with harbor seals where they give birth on the beach, and then they go out and they forage a bit, and then they come back. And harbor seals don't have that great behavior where they kind of bond with their pups right away. So they just know where their pups are based on where they left them. So they bond with the place where they left them. And so people see a little harbor seal pup and they think it's injured or sick, but it's really just hanging out until mom comes back. And so if your dogs scare it, or if somebody picks up, which happens, puts it in their trunk and brings it, you know, to the wildlife care center, then they'll never be reunited. So if you hear people talking about seals, or if you're going on the beach and you see somebody's dog running after them, please take that little bit of information with you. It'll save a bunch of critters. So the other half is the live stuff. And I want to tell you a little bit about the work that we do. And I'm going to focus mostly on gray whales. So have you guys seen gray whales out here? So this is the time. So how many people think that they just migrate past? Okay, so we do have these. So gray whales are baleen whales, and by baleen whales I mean that they have these sort of plates in their mouth that they strain food through the water. So they don't have teeth; they have baleen. And the weird and wonderful thing about baleen whales is that they migrate, and so all baleen whales feed for half of the year, and then they breed for half of the year. So they're fasting while they're giving birth and breeding, and then they're just shoving as much food as possible in their mouth for the other half of the year. So typically, gray whales along our coast breed down in Baja, and they breed down in Baja during the wintertime. Has anybody gone to the breeding lagoons? It is my bucket list thing, but I haven't been there yet. So during the wintertime, they migrate down to Baja, and they breed and give birth there, and they're fasting while they're there. And then they swim typically past us, and then go up to the Bering and Chukchi Sea, which is just north of the Aleutian Islands. And that's where they chow down all summer long. And so there's 24 hours of sunlight, lots of productivity with all of the glacial runoff. So it's a really robust and productive area. So most of the population of 20,000 critters migrate up there, feed, and then get this huge fat layer. They gestate their pups, and then they swim back down to Baja, give birth and breed. So it's this really interesting life cycle, right? Can you imagine going like 6 months with no food and 6 months? I like the 6 months like eating cake all the time, but the other part is more of a challenge. So that's what we thought was going on. And when I got up here, I used to fly with the Coast Guard. So I fly with the Coast Guard every week. And it was when I first arrived and they asked me to give a talk, something like this, and I came and talked to all the pilots. It's like, yeah. And then the commander said, so Dawn, is there anything we can do for you? It's like, well, thanks for asking. And so I asked him if I could hitch a ride. And so most of the Coast Guard personnel that come up here, they cycle through, yeah. So when they come up here, they don't have as much to do as they have in other places. So like when they come from Miami, or when they come from San Diego, or they come from Kodiak, it's a really different deal. They're like, so what does someone do? So it was a welcome thing. They have to do these same circuits every day. So they still have to fly the coast and look for immigrants. They still have to fly the coast and look for drug cartels. They still do these same things that everybody else does, but there's not a lot going on. So I would hop on those flights because they had to fly them anyway. And I would hang out of the door on a little belt and then take pictures pictures of all the sea lions along the way, and I take pictures of all the whales on the way. And then I get a call from one of the pilots in January and says, oh, you have to come, or February, you have to come and see all these whales. There are all these whales offshore at the lighthouse in Crescent City. It's like, okay, but there weren't supposed to be. Because what I just told you, right? Remember that they're down there in the wintertime, they're not here. So I said, okay, and I went out and I flew, it's like, holy crow, there's like 40 whales this year. So it turns out over time we've started to realize that there's this other group of gray whales that live here. It's called the Pacific Coast Feeding Group. And it's a group of whales that forego the full migration. So they do, some of them go down to Baja, but then they kind of stop here. And the southern edge of that range is Trinidad, which is awesome, right? So we just hop on our boat, and we have the southernmost edge of the Pacific Coast Feeding Group of gray whales here. It turns out it's a genetically different stock, and so we take samples from them, so we're able to see that they are really separate from that big group that migrates back and forth. Pretty exciting stuff. So how do you tell who a gray whale is? I hear you cry. And it's pretty straightforward. And so you look at the side of a gray whale, the dorsal surface, and the pigmentation patterns are all individualized. And so you can take a picture of them. You know, we had one that was named Gecko because it looked like there's a huge gecko splatter on it. And so you can identify them at a glance by just knowing their individual pigmentation pattern. And so we've identified over 320 whales off our coast over 20 years of doing at-sea work. So we drive out there on the 1 or 2 days that are neither too foggy or too big or too windy, or our boat works or the truck works, you know, all that sort of stuff. When all the stars align, we go out and we try to find as many whales as possible. And so we do photo identification of them, and then we build a catalog. And so it's kind of like the baseline stuff that we do on the beaches with the dead whales. We have this whole catalog of what's happening in the wild. And that has given us amazing insight into our local coastal ecosystem, into the nearshore waters, and how they're really used by these whales. So during the summertime, instead of being up in Alaska feeding and foraging, they're chowing down right here. And it's really interesting to see how their distribution in abundance changes. So they typically hang out around the Klamath River mouth for part of that time. The moms and babies like to go there around June when they come back. And they feed on these epibenthic, which means benthic is in the sand and epi is just above it. So these amphipods, which are like little roly-polies that are stuck on the top. And these whales go down and they're called grubbers. And what they do is they go down and they take a big mouthful of mud in their mouth, and then they squish out all the mud in the water, and they eat these little amphipods. And so one of our favorite things to do, you guys are going to think we're super weird, but you know, so we like dead things, and we really like poop. So poop is like the gold standard of whale biology. And so when a whale poops, you just drive up as quickly as possible and get your plankton net out and scoop up as much poop as possible. I had a very dedicated grad student once that we forgot the net and a whale pooped, which doesn't happen every time, so she took her hat off and she's like scooping up. I'm sorry, I know this is again, you can see how excited I get about weird things like that. But within that are the exoskeletons of the critters they've eaten. So we didn't know what they were eating here. It's really hard to tell. And so you can either get it from the front end, so when they come up to squish the mud and stuff out of their mouth, some of the prey escape, so you can do a plankton net through that. So either the front end or the back end, or both. So we're continuing that work, and it's interesting, over the last 20 years we've seen shifts in where they go, and that changes seasonally, and it changes based on where the prey are really abundant. And now with that interaction with senkus that we were talking about with the stranding stuff, we can look to see if that prey abundance is associated with water conditions, with the sea surface temperature, like in El Nino when it was too warm, and La Nina when it's nice and cold, or if it's associated with toxins and that sort of stuff. So we get an insight by looking not only with that whale, but with that whale's community by sharing our photos with everyone along the whole West Coast and saying, where does gecko fit in, you know? And as well as sharing it with the scientific community about the sort of diet and patterns of behavior. So those are the two real stories I have about whale work here in Northern California. If you have any questions, you can just check me out on our website or contact me.
And we have time for questions.
I'll take a couple now, but if you find any dead stuff walking. Dead stuff walking. Ooh. I'm happy to take some questions, yeah.
Do you do much work off the research vessel? It's just surprising to me that for all the years that research vessel, the amount of time it spends back at the dock, somebody at the university system hasn't wanted to sell that and cash it out to run the system for a nanosecond. You know, to have a resource like that and for it to still be here after all these years. I mean, does it get used that much? Do you use it that much?
I have to tell you, it gets used a lot. It's booked for the whole semester. And the great thing about that research book is that all of the universities in California, it's the only one that has a research vessel like that. So it's 93 feet. I don't know if you guys have seen it. It's on ADOC at the marina. It's 93 feet, and students go out on it every single weekend. That isn't sort of blowing.
Do you have your own captain?
We have our own captain, and he does a bunch of fundraising for it. They go off in the summer and they work for like USGS and do different things.
So that's how they pay for it?
They pay for it that way, and they pay for it, yeah, through student fees for the classes. Yeah, it's a. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to go on it, but it's a gorgeous book, and we do use it.
Do they ever give tours?
You know, I don't think as a whole they do, but if you guys wanted to go check it out, I could. I know we ever did. I know a guy. Yeah.
How many different species different kinds of whales do we have that hang around here?
So it's interesting. This is such a challenging place to work, because you know there's not many people going out and looking. But we have. I'm going to tell you the dead ones. I can count the dead ones up a little bit better. We've gotten 5 species of baleen whales. We've had fin whales, blue whales, humpback whales, gray whales, and sometimes a minke whale. So we've had like 5 different flavors of those guys. The most common of those are gray whales, and then humpback whales come in the late fall. So humpback whales you can see pretty readily in the late fall, and gray whales you can see pretty much any time. And of the dolphin species, we get like new species coming up all the time. But I'd say we've had some interesting warm water dolphins that we've never seen before this year. So animals that I've seen in Hawaii but never seen here before. So I'd say we have maybe 8 species of toothed whales, including killer whales, which is out here. So that's 8 plus 5 is 13. And then we have stellar sea lions, which have breeding colonies here, which we study up in Crescent City, and harbor seals, and California sea lions, and northern fur seals, and Guadalupe fur seals. So 8-ish. Give or take, yeah.
Did you comment on the mass beaching in New Zealand?
Yes.
That happened last month?
Yes. So we're fortunate that doesn't happen very much here. So mass strandings can be anthropogenic. It can be because there's been something out in the ocean, some loud sound that makes animals beach. But that place in New Zealand is a classic place for mass strandings. The same thing happens along Cape Cod, where we have mass strandings of whales that are up there as well. Some people think it's a magnetic anomaly in the Earth system where they just kind of run ashore. Most of those species are toothed whales, and toothed whales survive only by being in a tight community. So if 1 or 2 of those animals are sick or injured, the rest typically follow them ashore.
There's 416 of them.
It's a lot. It's a lot. They're still trying to unravel that. It's really too big for like an anthropogenic thing. So it's really more likely something to do with the oceanographic conditions or not. So what they're doing is like massive necropsies on those animals to see if they can determine cause of death. And what they often find there is there's like I said, 3 or 4 that are really sick or injured, and the others are bound to sort of come. Yeah, I mean, there's total survival depends on being together. So even when there's a land spit in the way, their survival still depends on that. I mean, it's real. It's both wonderful at sea, but also challenging when it goes away. Yeah.
Are any of our local beaches more fruitful for finding your corpses than others?
Yes. Students compete for access to those beaches. I was like, no, you're walking the one that we don't usually see. Yes. Yes. So there are some that are much more fruitful. We've just recently started working down off the Lost Coast, and there are some places in southern Humboldt and northern Mendocino that are really fruitful. And of course, that's the sort of triple plate junction, and there's all sorts of interesting oceanography and jutting out beaches and things there. But yeah, so there are a couple places where we get them. Honestly, this year so far we've had 12 strandings. Last year we had 67 strandings. So it's not like you have billions every year, but every single one tells us a story. Yeah.
I've heard there's some way, some website or something that you can take a photo of a whale and it IDs it and you can tie it into its background or something. Is there something with that?
There is. I didn't know about it with whales, but there's a site called iNaturalist. Has anybody checked that out? And we did it because we found this really cool spider in our garden. And so you take a picture, you put it on, and in minutes, the sort of trapdoor spider guy says, "Oh, so that can help you identify it and tell you a little bit about it. So it's just sort of crowdsourcing for.
It's called Happy Whale.
That's the one.
Happy Whale.
Happywhale.com. Yeah.
I think it might be for humpbacks or something.
I think there's one species
Oh,
more than
I see.
others.
I see. So you're thinking about identifying individuals. That's great. I'm going
And
to check
it's
that
a
out.
citizen science website that people can sign up and submit photographs. And then based on the markings on the tails, they determine who, which, and then you can track them around the globe is the other interesting thing because of the different photographs
That would be a
get
happy
submitted.
whale. Thank you. Howard, do you know where?
Yeah, how are the populations doing? Are they declining? Are they stable? Are they growing? Can you estimate the abundance?
We can. And so the great news about gray whales is that they're one of the few sort of poster child whales or species that was on the endangered species list because of overharvesting, but then got off the endangered species list 15 years ago. So it recovered to beyond historical numbers. And now the interesting conservation question with increased genetics and other ways to understand what populations are is this group, this Pacific Coast feeding group, is actually genetically somewhat separate from the larger group. And so now the question is this group now endangered and separate enough from the main sort of migration group that it needs its special protection? So it kind of evolves as technology.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And next week.
I believe you are on tap at the Nature Center next week.
Right.
If you want to actually see the photos
Oh,
and a more
yeah.
in-depth talk,
dead whale
You want to see the dead whale?
and get a little more in-depth, the Humboldt Coastal Nature Center has an evening lecture series. I think it's on the 9th.
It is the
Thursday
Yes.
night. And so maybe I'll make sure that any of those phone numbers that you were going to share, I could share with Dick in the Sunrise Speak.
That'd be
if
great.
people want
Oh,
to
that
see
would be
that.
Because I think everybody should put the phone
Yeah.
number for the injured critters or sightings in your phone. So when you're walking on the beach.
Yeah, give me a call. I'd love.
And don't
I'd
pick
love
up
to
the
get
pups.
those photos. So yes, don't pick up. Well, thanks again.
Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Fascinating, and you did great without the.
Oh.
the background. And in appreciation for your talk, we are going to issue donations for Bill